branded, scorned as the one who ran.
Now, the actor who made his name in a series of westerns during the 50s and 60s died this week. Chuck Connors was 71.
Have you ever wondered what happened to the Rifleman star Chuck Connors after the cameras stopped rolling? Behind the steely persona of Lucas McCain, Connors' life was filled with twists even more dramatic than any western ever aired. From an unexpected role in Cold War diplomacy to love affairs that nearly destroyed his career, his story is far more complex than most fans ever realized. How did a baseball player from Brooklyn become a hero in the Soviet Union? Why did all three of his marriages end in scandal? And what was the dark secret he hid until his final days? The answer may have been locked away in a sealed room for nearly 3 decades, until an estate liquidation in the San Fernando Valley unearthed an old steel trunk, containing a military journal not found in any official archive. Wrapped in paracord, sealed with red wax, and faintly stamped with the Department of Defense insignia, the notebook bore no name, no service number, only a single handwritten line. "If I die, don't let this be published. They will deny me. They will deny everything." Contents: off-record operations at Camp Hood, Texas. Unregistered prisoner transports. Lists of disappeared targets. And one execution, without trial, without witnesses, without a single public gunshot, documented only in the line, "The Woods, February night, 1952. The notebook was later sealed by a federal agency. But a photocopy of its contents had already circulated, offering a chilling explanation for why Connors never spoke about his time in the military. Was this the chapter of his life he most wanted buried? In this video, we'll trace those scattered clues, to uncover a completely different face of Chuck Connors. Not the cowboy hero on screen, but a soldier carrying secrets that blurred the line between orders and law. From Brooklyn hardship to two-sport athlete. Chuck Connors, born Kevin Joseph Aloysius Connors on April 10, 1921, in Brooklyn, New York, came from a working-class Irish-American family. His father, Alan, was a dock worker. His mother, Marcelle, took on odd jobs to help the family survive the Great Depression. In hardship, Chuck learned the value of hard work and resilience, qualities that would define his entire life. His childhood was shaped by the Bay Ridge Boys Club, where his deep love for sports took root. Baseball was his greatest passion. At age 14, his talent was discovered, earning him an athletic scholarship to the prestigious Adelphi Academy in Brooklyn. There, Chuck excelled in baseball, basketball, football, and track. By 1939, he was named one of Brooklyn's top high school athletes. Dozens of colleges offered him athletic scholarships. Chuck chose Seton Hall University in New Jersey, where he played both basketball and baseball. In a 1942 game, he hit 2 home runs and scored 6 RBIs, achievements that drew attention from professional scouts. Around this time, his nickname, Chuck, was born from a phrase he'd often shout while playing first base, "Chuck it to me." When World War II broke out, Chuck put his sports dream on hold and joined the Army in 1942, training at Fort Knox. He was soon selected as a tank warfare instructor at West Point. Even in the service, he kept playing, competing in semi-pro baseball and in the American Basketball League. After 3 years of service, he was honorably discharged in 1946 and joined the Boston Celtics in their inaugural season. On the basketball court, standing at 6 feet 5 inches, he averaged 4.5 points per game across 49 games. But within months, he left the Celtics to pursue his true passion, baseball. On May 1, 1949, he made his MLB debut with the Brooklyn Dodgers but only played a single game. Undeterred, he continued in the minor leagues, and by 1951, he signed with the Chicago Cubs. In 66 games, he tallied 48 hits with a batting average of .239, proof that he wasn't just dabbling. His 2 stunning home runs against the New York Giants stood as testimony to real talent, and unwavering determination. The Hollywood turning point. Chuck Connors' journey to Hollywood began in a way no one could have predicted. In 1952, while still playing baseball for the Los Angeles Angels, a minor league team, he hit a spectacular home run during a game against the Sacramento Solons. It wasn't just a brilliant swing, it was a moment that caught the attention of someone sitting in a VIP seat, a casting scout from MGM. At the time, Connors still considered baseball his main career. Acting had never been something he pursued seriously. But just a few weeks later, a minor injury sidelined him temporarily. During those rare days of rest, he was invited to visit the MGM studio, initially just for a tour. Unexpectedly, they asked him to audition. He agreed more out of curiosity than ambition. Yet only 3 days after the screen test, Chuck Connors signed his first contract with a major film studio. A new chapter opened, one that would change his life forever. His first role was as a deputy sheriff in the romantic comedy Pat and Mike, 1952, starring two Hollywood legends, Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn. Though his appearance was brief, Connors made an impression on his very first day on set. The scene was shot at night. Connors, who had arrived hours early, stayed focused and completed the scene in just 2 takes. After the shoot, Spencer Tracy walked over and said, "You've got something. Pursue it." That encouragement became a deep source of inspiration, pushing Connors to take acting seriously. Between 1952 and 1958, he appeared in over 20 films, ranging from minor roles to characters with real emotional depth. One of his most notable early performances was in Old Yeller, 1957, a Disney family classic. Connors played Bern Sanderson, a flawed but heartfelt father. The film brought him closer to the general public and caught the eye of producers working on The Rifleman. At that time, Connors also participated in nearly 20 television shows, something rare for actors back then. With the work ethic of a professional athlete and serious dedication to his craft, he proved he could be both versatile and reliable in any filming environment, from rugged Western landscapes to contemporary domestic settings. A major milestone arrived in 1958. After careful consideration, he agreed to take on the role of Lucas McCain in The Rifleman, a character who would become an icon of discipline, strength, and deeply felt fatherhood. Initially hesitant due to the modest salary, Connors was swayed by the producer's determination, including an offer of 5% ownership in the show. He accepted the role and immediately began training in horseback riding and firearms with expert Rod Redwing, practicing until every movement became second nature. The Rifleman premiered on September 30, 1958, and was an instant sensation with over 14 million viewers tuning in for the first episode. Lucas McCain, a tough but loving single father, touched the hearts of audiences. The relationship between him and his son Mark, played by Johnny Crawford, became the emotional core of the entire series. The character's defining symbol was a custom-modified Winchester 1892 rifle, with an oversized lever that allowed Connors to spin the gun skillfully, creating the trademark move that opened each episode. This rifle wasn't just a weapon, it was a symbol of the fusion between skill and courage, an inseparable part of the Rifleman's visual legacy. Its fame spread so widely that Winchester eventually released a commercial version to satisfy fans. From a two-sport athlete, a boy from Depression-era Brooklyn, Chuck Connors became a television icon, through persistence, discipline, and the ability to resonate with genuine human emotion. And The Rifleman was the launchpad that turned him into a legend. The Rifleman was not just a cowboy show, and Lucas McCain was not just a sharpshooter. What made the series unique and timeless was its deeply human core, a moving story about fatherhood between Lucas and his son Mark. At a time when most television shows focused on picture-perfect families, the portrayal of a widowed father raising his child alone on the harsh western frontier was something entirely new, and because of that, profoundly special. Audiences didn't just tune in to The Rifleman for gunfights or outlaws. They came for the moments when Lucas McCain wrestled with a deeper question: how do you raise a child in a world full of uncertainty? In one episode, he had to decide whether to let Mark testify in court, facing the fear of losing his only son. In another, he struggled between enforcing discipline and managing emotion, as Mark began expressing adolescent anger. These storylines didn't just reveal a more complex Lucas McCain, they struck a chord with millions of real-life single fathers. Chuck Connors wasn't just the face of the Rifleman on screen. After the first season, he began attending script meetings, pitching story ideas, and directly helping to shape the emotional arcs of many episodes. A standout example was The Photographer, a story inspired by a disturbing memory from Connors' baseball days, when he was stalked by an obsessive fan. Connors also fiercely defended the human side of Lucas McCain. He often rewrote lines, adding period-accurate Old West slang, not for flair, but so that McCain would speak like a man who truly lived off the land. He wanted viewers to see that Lucas was not a flawless hero. At times, he failed. At times, he lost his temper. At times, he was consumed by regret. In one particularly powerful episode, McCain accidentally kills an innocent man. The editors feared backlash, but Connors fought to keep it. He said, "A man who carries a rifle must understand its weight, if not, he has no business carrying it." That spirit didn't just set the series apart, it made McCain a moral archetype deeply respected by millions of viewers. Behind the scenes, Connors also helped bring fresh talent into the spotlight. Dennis Hopper, who would later become a cinema icon, was introduced by Connors in the pilot episode. He also brought in his old baseball teammate Duke Snider for a guest appearance, something almost unheard of at the time. By the final season, Connors had so much influence that he was credited as a story consultant on several episodes. He co-wrote the two-part finale, ensuring that key characters were honored and unfinished plotlines were resolved with heartfelt closure. From its very first season, The Rifleman made waves on the small screen. Its premiere on September 30, 1958, drew over 14.6 million households and posted a Nielsen rating of 33.1, landing it at number 4 nationwide. A 1959 survey revealed that 78% of viewers watched for the father-son bond, while 92% of men aged 18 to 49 were drawn by the action-packed gunfights and galloping horses. The Rifleman phenomenon extended far beyond television. Toy replicas of McCain's Winchester rifle, lunchboxes printed with images of Lucas and Mark, and a comic book line that saw wide distribution. Within just the first 3 months, merchandising brought in over $2 million, a staggering sum at the time. The series received 3 Emmy nominations in its debut season and consistently ranked among the most popular shows for its entire 5-year run. Even in its final season, The Rifleman held the 27th spot nationwide, proof of the extraordinary staying power of a show rooted in something seemingly simple, the bond between father and son. Decades later, with reruns airing on classic television networks, a 2018 MV survey revealed that The Rifleman remained the top favorite among viewers aged 55 and older. That says it all. Real values, when told the right way, never go out of style. When The Rifleman officially ended in 1963 after 168 episodes, Chuck Connors entered a challenging new chapter. The role of Lucas McCain had catapulted him to fame, but it also confined him to a persona that was difficult to shake. To the general public, he would always be the widowed father wielding a Winchester on the rugged frontier. And Hollywood, as always, offered few openings to actors still carrying the shadow of an iconic role. Ideals and convictions. In a Hollywood known for its liberalism yet often cautious when it comes to political declarations, Chuck Connors stood as a blunt and defiant exception. While many colleagues voiced opposition to the Vietnam War, he went against the tide, not for fame, but out of personal conviction. In 1967, he joined a large-scale march in New York to support the U.S. military. At a time when most of the entertainment industry turned its back on the government, Connors didn't just speak, he acted. He publicly endorsed Republican candidates, including Senator Barry Goldwater during the 1964 presidential election. It was a choice that cost him more than a few roles, but Connors had no regrets. "I'd rather lose work than compromise my principles," he once said when asked whether he feared alienating his audience. There was a time when Chuck Connors was encouraged to run for Congress. But instead of entering politics, he chose to stay in film, believing it still gave him a platform to voice his ideals. Between 1968 and 1972, he personally made several trips to the front lines in Vietnam, meeting with American troops, sharing field meals, and talking not as a star, but as a comrade. When the war ended, he was one of the few who dared to speak out about how America treated its veterans. They deserve ticker tape parades, not indifference and disdain. Ironically, while he was a conservative icon in the U.S., the Rifleman, the show most closely associated with his name, became a cultural phenomenon in the Soviet Union at the height of the Cold War. The image of Lucas McCain, a strong father figure and defender of justice, transcended ideological barriers and drew over 250 million Soviet viewers. In a rare instance, Hollywood's soft power reached the Kremlin. Soviet leader Leonid Brezhnev, known for his notoriously strict TV tastes, was a devoted fan. In 1973, when Brezhnev visited Washington, he specifically requested a private meeting with Connors, not with a head of state or a CEO, but with a cowboy star. The meeting wasn't just symbolic, it opened the door to an unprecedented diplomatic opportunity. Later that year, Connors traveled to Moscow as an honorary guest of the Soviet government. He was welcomed with full ceremonial honors. At the Kremlin, he and Brezhnev even held a friendly shooting match, using replica Winchester rifles, similar to the one Connors had gifted the Soviet leader. But it didn't end with the formalities. Connors attended special screenings of The Rifleman, where hundreds lined up for autographs. He also filmed a short documentary titled Peace and Friendship, broadcast on national Soviet television, where he shared thoughts on empathy and finding common ground between two nations once on opposite sides of a battlefield. The documentary drew record viewership, and Chuck Connors became what some called an unofficial diplomat in a way no one else in Hollywood ever had. Nearly 2 decades later, as age crept in and the spotlight dimmed, Connors was given one last chance to become Lucas McCain again, the character that had made him a legend. On November 3, 1991, he appeared in The Gambler Returns, The Luck of the Draw, alongside Kenny Rogers and a cast of veteran television stars. Dressed once more in his cowboy gear, Winchester in hand, he stepped from the haze of memory into a brief showdown, not to win, but as a final farewell. The scene lasted only 90 seconds, but it was powerful enough to hush an entire audience. And what made it even more special was the presence of Johnny Crawford, the boy who had played his son for 5 seasons on The Rifleman. Between the two of them, no dialogue was needed. Just one exchanged glance was enough for viewers to understand, they had once been a family, not only on screen. The Forbidden Diary, discovered in the abandoned cabin. Nearly 3 decades after Chuck Connors passed away, an old wooden cabin he once used as a retreat near the edge of Santa Clarita, far from the bustle of Brentwood, unexpectedly became the center of attention. Listed as a neglected property in need of restoration, the modest house sat nestled among pine trees, once serving as Connors' refuge whenever he wanted to escape the camera lights, the press, and Hollywood. During a cleanup ahead of liquidation, a demolition crew noticed that a section of the ceiling behind the bedroom had been crudely patched. After prying off the plywood, they discovered an old metal trunk, built in the standard military design of the 1950s. The trunk bore no name, no serial number, no combination lock, only bound with old parachute cord and sealed with cracked red wax. Inside was a single item, a heavy leather-bound diary, worn at the edges, stitched along the spine with wax thread, exuding the musty scent of old paper. On the first page, in clear handwritten script, was a line signed. "If I die, burn this. No one will confirm it. No one will stand up for it. Chuck Connors, Fort Hood, 1952." This was not a personal journal. It was an unofficial tactical document, detailing off-the-record operations during Connors' time stationed at Fort Hood, Texas. No military ID number. No unit name. But there were hand-drawn maps, lists of targets marked with XS, and meticulous descriptions of missions never formally disclosed. Page 17. "I didn't ask, they didn't answer. A GMC drove into the woods. 3 men went in, 2 came out. Never saw it return." Page 46. "No orders, no signatures. We cleaned out a location I suspected was a holding camp. No signage, no paperwork. But there were people, blindfolded, handcuffed, standing in line. Page 73. They called it the transition zone. But I know it was the place no one was ever recorded to have existed. The diary also documents a specific event in February 1952, where Connors wrote, "One night in February. I was on guard. There was a noise. That soldier never came back. I got promoted after that." The entire diary reads as an unpolished, uninterrupted account, as if it were an attempt to record something he could never say out loud. Every thick page seems soaked with regret. Though Connors never publicly acknowledged any of it, the document confirms that he witnessed, or directly participated in, top-secret operations during the height of the Cold War, when the U.S. military was accused of running covert camps to interrogate or neutralize individuals deemed beyond the reach of conventional law. The diary's existence was likely meant to remain buried forever. But a storage worker secretly photographed several pages before the journal was seized just hours later by a government unit of unknown affiliation. Since then, the house was immediately sealed off. No one from the Connors family made any comment. The listing agent was required to sign a non-disclosure agreement. But the leaked scans had already begun to circulate. After the documents appeared on an old military forum, a former U.S. intelligence officer confirmed, on condition of anonymity. Fort Hood records from early 1952 were once pulled from internal archives. Many personnel from that period were never listed in the system. Some of them were later reassigned to non-military roles in entertainment or media. Chuck Connors was one of them. The fact that he never spoke of his deployment at Fort Hood, instead only referencing training at Fort Knox or playing sports at West Point, was no longer surprising. It was deliberate. A calculated effort to erase the past, to bury it under layers of fame and stardust from a cowboy television icon. Perhaps that abandoned cabin, the secluded little retreat in the woods, was the only place he ever dared to keep the part of his memory he couldn't carry with him onto the stage. Love, heartbreak, and the shattered pieces behind the spotlight. Chuck Connors' private life was no less dramatic than the cowboy roles he portrayed on screen. Behind the stoic, upstanding image of Lucas McCain stood a man who went through 3 marriages, endured multiple broken relationships, and lived under the constant weight of public scrutiny. His first marriage came from a real-life silver screen romance. In 1948, while playing for the Montreal Royals, Chuck met Betty Riddle, a young model from Montreal, born into a well-off family. They fell in love quickly and married just as fast. On October 1, 1948, when Connors was only 27 and still searching for direction between sports and Hollywood, they officially became husband and wife. Their early years were filled with joy and laughter, raising 4 sons, Michael, Jeffrey, Stephen, and Kevin. It seemed like the foundation for a stable life. But when Connors' acting career took off, especially after The Rifleman, cracks quietly began to form. A relentless shooting schedule, surging fame, and unchecked rumors offset strained the marriage. In 1961, Betty discovered he was having an affair with an actress on set. It wasn't just a shock, it was the breaking point. Their divorce was finalized in 1962, ending 14 years of marriage. While the public saw a courteous separation, close acquaintances later revealed that Betty had threatened to expose Connors' affairs unless he agreed to her terms in the divorce. 1 year later, Connors entered a new chapter, filled with passion, but also cracks. He married Kamala Devi, an Anglo-Indian actress who had co-starred with him in Geronimo. Kamala was unlike most women in Hollywood at the time, intelligent, independent, and sharp-witted. The two formed a popular on- and off-screen couple, starring together in Branded, Cowboy in Africa, and other projects. But their differing ideals and lifestyles soon emerged. Kamala wanted him to pursue more emotionally complex roles, while Connors remained committed to the rugged cowboy persona that had defined his career. That disconnect, compounded by Connors' long-standing reputation for womanizing, pushed them apart. By 1972, after 9 years together, they quietly divorced. The final film they did together, The Proud and the Damned, seemed a somber reflection of their relationship unraveling. Connor's third marriage was the shortest, and the most controversial. In 1973, during the filming of Soylent Green, he met young actress Faith Quabius, who was 33 years his junior. They married in 1977 in a private ceremony in Mexico. Connors joked, after playing husband and wife on screen so many times, it was time to make it official. But just 3 years later, the marriage fell apart. Faith accused him of abuse during their time together, particularly when he drank. Connors denied the allegations. But even though the scandal didn't explode publicly, it left a lasting stain on his image. Even in his most peaceful years, Connor's personal life was haunted by whispers. One woman claimed to have had a long affair with him in the 1960s and alleged that he was the father of her child, though this was never proven. On set, he was known as someone with irresistible charm, but also someone who struggled with fidelity. Joan Crawford once quipped, he could charm the birds off the trees, but he never kept a single nest intact. At a party in 1975, Connors was reportedly caught in a compromising situation with a young actress. Rumors swirled that he lost a major role because of it. His sons would later speak candidly about the emotional toll their father's lifestyle had on them. Jeffrey Connors once said bluntly, "My father wasn't addicted to women. He was addicted to the rush. And that always comes with a price." Chuck Connors never fully denied or explained the rumors surrounding his life. In his later years, when asked if he had any regrets, he simply smiled and offered a single reply, "I lived my way. Maybe not everyone agrees with it, but I never apologized for it." The final chapter of a legend. In 1992, at the age of 71, Chuck Connors received the grim diagnosis he had always hoped would never come, lung cancer. The illness was believed to be the result of his decades-long smoking habit. At one point, he was consuming up to 3 packs a day. For many, it came as a shock. They were used to seeing Connors as strong, unshakable, striding across the screen as if nothing could bring him down. And yet now, it was his very breath that had become fragile. At first, Connors chose to keep everything private. He continued attending events, wearing his familiar smile and refusing to show any sign of weakness. But by October of that year, his health had visibly deteriorated. On October 28, he was admitted to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles with a lung infection, a dangerous complication for someone already in the late stages of cancer. For 13 days, he fought silently, in the quiet light of the recovery room, surrounded by faint hopes from his loved ones. On November 10, 1992, Chuck Connors took his final breath. The official cause of death was listed as lung cancer, with pneumonia as a contributing factor. He passed away peacefully, without noise, without spectacle, just as he had lived. Connors' passing left a deep void, not only among fans of the Rifleman, but across the arts, sports, and for all those who had the chance to work with him. Many tributes poured in, written with genuine reverence for a rare kind of man, both a cultural icon and someone who never chased what didn't belong to him. At the time of his death, Chuck Connors left behind an estimated net worth of around $10 million, a reflection of a long and diverse career spanning television, film, and professional sports. The majority of this came from his defining role as Lucas McCain in The Rifleman. At the peak of the show's success, Connors was paid around $25,000 per episode, an astonishing sum in the late 1950s, equivalent to hundreds of thousands today. He didn't live like a dazzling celebrity. In his final years, Chuck Connors settled into a cozy ranch-style home in West Hollywood, California. No extravagance, no glamour, just a house that reflected who he truly was, grounded, rugged, and in harmony with earth, natural light, and stillness. For those who witnessed the journey from a Brooklyn baseball player to a national television icon, Connors' life stands as proof of resilience, principled choices, and the courage to live truthfully, even when it wasn't trendy, and certainly never easy. And that's the story we wanted to share with you today. If you found this content meaningful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel to join us on future journeys. The next video is waiting for you.